Hi, welcome to Tefo, his-tory channel. I am Catharina Magrietha Kruger and I will tell you the story behind the his-tory of Johan Anthoniszoon van Riebeeck, or like we know the old character Jan van Riebeeck. So grab yourself a cup of coffee, sit back and let's start histouring around. Now you're probably thinking, Catharina Magrietha Kruger, have you lost all your marbles? How can you speak about or talk about the character Jan van Riebeeck? For you see, these days, old Jan, he's quite a sensitive topic, for everybody blames him for stuff that goes wrong in this country. Even the electricity, that's only a joke. I just have to put on my big old panties and bring you the facts and try to tell you the story behind the history of this character. You see, Jan van Riebeeck didn't even want to come to South Africa. He didn't want to stay here. He only lived here for 10 years. In the 1970s, 1980s, as well as the beginning years of the 1990s, children were taught in school that Jan van Riebeeck was the founder of the nation. He only had put his foot on land on 6 April 1652. There were people already living here, the San and the Khoi people, but needless to say, we were taught that he really had built the nation. His face his image even appeared on the banknotes, on post stamps, but was it really the face of Jan van Riebeeck or the image? No, it wasn't. It was the image or the portrait of Bartholomeus Vermuyden. Now, who was Bartholomeus Vermuyden? Well, he was also working for the Dutch East Indian Company, but he never ever in his life had put foot on land on the African continent. Probably he was a better looking guy than Jan. For you see, Jan van Riebeeck wasn't really an oil painting. Sorry for being punny. But the portrait of Bartholomeus Vermuyden is hanging now in the Rijksmuseum or Art Gallery in Amsterdam. So, let's forget about the portrait and let's get back to the story. On 12 April 1619, Johan Anthoniszoon or Jan van Riebeeck was born in Culemborg in the Netherlands. His father's name was Anthonie Jans van Riebeeck and his mother was Elizabeth van Gaasbeek. Unfortunately for poor little young Jan, when he was just 10 years of age, his mother passed away. And his father had to look after him and teach him everything he knew of life. He even taught Jan his surgical skills. For you see, Jan's father also worked for the VOC ships, or the VOC company, Verenigde Oos-Indische Compagnie, or Dutch East Indian Company. He always sailed as a surgeon from the Netherlands, around the Cape, all the way to Batavia, Indonesia, or Jakarta, Indonesia. When Jan was only 19 years of age, he decided he wanted to join the company and also work for the Dutch East Indian Company. So on his first voyage from the Netherlands around the Cape to Batavia, took nearly 1 year. And when he reached Batavia, he got the sad news: his father passed away. Jan then thought by himself, Jan, would I really like to stay working as a surgeon for the VOC? Or do I really rather want to become a merchant? So that's what he chose. He became a merchant for the VOC and worked in Batavia for a while as a junior merchant. The VOC thought, well, Jan is really doing a great job. Let's send him to Token. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it is apparently in northern Vietnam. There he was placed as a senior merchant and in command of the whole trading post in Token. Until Jan's little fingers went into his own pockets. You see, he traded animal skins with the locals as well as with Japan for his own pocket. Unfortunately for old Jan, the VOC heard all about it and they said, Jan, come back to the Netherlands and for 2 months you will not get a salary. Jans actually then joined a ship departing Batavia, and they were then instructed by the VOC to stop in the Cape of Good Hope in Table Bay to collect Leonard Jans and 62 crew members of the sunken New Haarlem ship. Now, history lovers, this actually changed history. For before I can tell you further of the story of Jan van Riebeeck, I firstly have to tell you about Leonard Jans and the New Haarlem. For this, in my point of view, changed history. Now before we get to Leonard Jansen or Jans, I don't know if it's Jans or Jansen because some documents state that it was Jansen and some says it was just Jans. So let's say Jansen. Jansen and the New Haarlem ship that sank. Before we get to that story, you must just remember before old Jan van Riebeeck set foot on land in 1652, the Venetians, the Portuguese, the Chinese, the English, the Frenchies and the Dutch sailed around the Cape of Good Hope on their way to the east to trade for spices. So none of them had put up a halfway station or an area to get some fresh food and water down in Cape Town. The reason for that was, you see, way back when the people actually thought that the Khoi people or the indigenous people who lived first here on the south coast of Africa, that they were man-eating people, that they were cannibals. But that was not the case. You see, de Almeida was a Portuguese sailor and he and his men went on land and they actually stole some children from the Khoi people as well as some of their cattle to take with them. What did the Khoi do? They killed de Almeida as well as some of the crew members, and then the word spread like wildfire that they were man-eating. But goodness gracious, if you would steal my child and steal my cattle, I'm going to kill you as well. So that was the reason why none of the nations actually had a refreshment station down in the Cape of Good Hope. They were too afraid of the Khoi people. Although they stopped there for fresh water and maybe just bartered with a friendly Khoi person that would bring them a cow or fresh meat down to the beach. On 25th of March 1647, the New Haarlem ship sailed all the way from the east with loads of spices on it, and it sailed around the Cape, and then suddenly at the area of Milnerton these days, or let's say Rietvlei, there it went shipwreck. Although there were no casualties, its sinking was destined to change the course of history. One of the junior merchant's name was Leonard Jansen, and Leonard Jansen was instructed together with 62 other men to stay behind here in Cape Town. Remember, they were afraid of the man-eating people. They were forced, or rather instructed, to stay to look after some of the valuable cargo. That was pepper, some textiles and porcelain, and then 58 other crew members hopped onto other Dutch ships on their way back to Holland. What they did was that firstly built themselves a fortress. They named it Zandenburg. Now in English that would be sand castle or sand town. I don't know really if it was just built out of sand. I don't think so. Probably some wood and reeds as well. So they built themselves this fortress, And then they started catching fish. According to Leonard's diary, he said loads of fish were caught in the Salt River, and they've traded and bartered with the local people, the Khoi people. And that the Khoi people were very friendly. They came to the beach and brought their cattle. So they were not man-eating people. It's also in the diary that they went all the way to Robben Island, and then there they brought some, I think it was 200 birds the day back, and over 180 eggs. Most of the birds that they caught there to eat were penguins. Weird, but anyhow, maybe they really were longing to eat meat. But needless to say, they survived, and he kept diary, and they waited nearly for 8 months for another Dutch passing ship to come and collect them and take them all the way to Holland. Who was on that ship that collected them? None other than Jan van Riebeeck. Remember, his dirty paws collected his own money and put it in his own pockets by selling all the animal skins. So he was on that ship. Now you must remember, old Jan's moral was sort of down, and he was depressed because he was hit over the fingers, and he was now on his way back to Holland. They stopped and they picked up the crew as well as Leonard Jans. And then old Jan van Riebeeck and Leonard Jans, and then there was another guy, Nicolaas Poort. They started talking. And then Jansen said, well, you know what? I think I must write a report to the year 17. Now, who was the year 17? That was the board of directors of the VOC. Verenigde Oos-Indiese Compagnie. It means this year 17, the Lord 17. So probably there were 17 lords managing this company. So they sat on the ship, and I can just imagine that old Jan said, oh, ja toch, wat een mooie plaats. Ik denk het wel dat wij kan overleven en misschien een halfwegstation daar opzetten. In my Dutch Afrikaans, that would have been, oh, I think it is a beautiful place. Maybe we can put up a halfway station or a refreshment station for the company there and to support all the Dutch passing ships. So they went all the way back to Holland. When they arrived back in Holland, Leonard Jansen and Nicolaas Poort went to the directors of the company. Well, what did Jan van Riebeeck do? He started living there, and he fell in love with a young girl, Maria de la Quellerie. Now, Maria, she was the daughter of a reverend of Rotterdam. His name was Abram de la Quellerie. You know, love is love, and my grandmother always said you can't help it. Jan was already 29 years old, but it come like a very big stomach ache. You can't help it. And they fell in love, and they married in 1649. Now, back to Mr. Jansen and Mr. Poort. At last they convinced the year 17 or the 17 lords it is okay to start the halfway station. Then the Lord 17 said, well, you know what, we think that it would be great, Leonard Jans, if you can become the first commander of this halfway station down in the Cape. You would be the perfect person because you already survived there. Leonard Jans said, no, I don't think so. I think I've stayed quite long enough in the wilderness. I just want to stay now here in Holland. So the next bet was to ask Mr. Jan van Riebeeck to go down to the Cape to start a halfway station. You see, the company of directors said, well, they don't want to colonize Africa. They only want to put up a halfway station to barter with the local people, and probably also then to set up a vegetable garden for the Dutch passing ships to supply them with fresh food and water. So, they asked Jan van Riebeeck, Jan, wil jij alstublieft naar de Kaap gaan om de commandeur te worden? Would you like to go down to the Cape to become the first governor of the Cape? Jan thought by himself, okay, I really want to go back to the east because there the company men were living in quite luxurious houses and they were really treated well. How can I work myself up again and let the company actually trust me again? Okay, I will go down to the Cape and start the halfway station for them. His contract was only for 5 years. He didn't know that he had to stay longer. But in my next video, I will tell you why he had to stay longer. So he signed the contract and he was ready to depart and become the first governor of the Cape of Good Hope. So, history lovers, this was then the first part of the story behind the his-tory of Jan van Riebeeck. I know it is a long story, but just stick with me and bear with me. I really want to tell you the nitty-gritty stuff and the in-between and, the lekker stories. Lekker in Afrikaans, the nice stories. That's a South African word that we use nearly for everything. Stuff that tastes well, stuff that is great doing. It's lekker. There I go again, dwelling off the point. But needless to say, join me for my next video, next week, Friday, to hear the story of Jan van Riebeeck down in the Cape. Ciao. Have a lovely week.